Network. This is the 10 o'clock news on Q2, Montana's news leader.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Jeanelle Slade.
And I'm Russ Riesinger. The mystery of what happened to a missing teenager who was in a van that broke down on Interstate 90 is still unsolved tonight, and concerns are growing.
Tonight, the search for Selena Not Afraid suspended at dark after authorities, friends, family, and volunteers took to the air, horseback, and on foot today to scour the rest stop area on I-90 in Bighorn County, where witnesses say the 16-year-old left a broken down vehicle and took off walking.
Now, Not Afraid was last seen around 2 in the afternoon on New Year's Day. The Bighorn County Sheriff's Office is leading that search and also conducting an investigation.
Sheriff Pete Big Hair tells us Not Afraid and 5 other people were on their way home from a New Year's Eve party. They stopped at the rest area to fix a mechanical problem. Once it was fixed, the driver drove off and left Not Afraid and another girl behind. When the driver's mother came to pick up the girls, Not Afraid was missing.
The sheriff's office interviewed the people in the van and will look for possible clues inside that vehicle. Q2's David J. has more from the rest area.
Family and friends, along with search and rescue teams, have been looking for Selena Not Afraid in about a 3 to 5 mile radius.
Pretty tough. It was pretty slippery. It's pretty icy out there, and it's pretty wet. And it's cold.
Muddy, a lot of snow, rain. There's rivers, creeks. It's real rocky. A lot of, it's a pretty tough terrain out there.
They've been searching out here all day, and the sheriff says they're also doing more investigating to get a better idea where Selena might be.
There's about 2 or 3 different stories from these people in the vehicle. They're not all in one story, There's different stories from a couple of them that are not. So we're kind of don't know if they're telling the truth or not, so that's why we want to verify.
Sheriff Pete Big Hair says the driver of a van left Selena and another girl at the rest area after fixing a mechanical problem. The sheriff says the driver didn't want the van to stall again, took off with 3 passengers, and called his mother to pick up the girls.
The vehicle's been impounded, and probably going to do a search warrant. Search the vehicle, make sure there's no foul play and stuff like that,
Some of the family may stay at the rest area and look for Selena.
Probably be out there all night searching again, and as long as it takes, we're just hoping for the best that she'll be still alive,
Prayers, and we just hope that, somebody comes forward and that tells us that she's safe or lets us know where she's at.
North of Hardin, David J., MTN News.
All right, thanks, David. Now, more than 100 people searched today and about the same number yesterday.
The BIA, the Yellowstone County Sheriff's Office, and K-9 teams from Billings Police and Red Lodge have also joined in on that search.
Meanwhile, a Sydney woman has changed her plea to no contest related to the death of her infant daughter, and she could very well spend the rest of her life behind bars.
The Sydney Herald reports that Sasha Hines entered the no contest plea on deliberate homicide and assault with a weapon charges as part of a plea deal. Those charges stem from the death of Hines' infant daughter, 2-month-old Kylie Hines, and the stabbing of 20-year-old Brendan Sheehan. Witnesses indicated that meth use was a factor in that case.
As part of the deal, prosecutors agreed to make a sentencing recommendation of 100 years with 20 years suspended.
And we now know the name of a 72-year-old Billings woman allegedly killed by her husband before a reported crash on New Year's Eve.
Deputy Coroner Rich Hoffman says 72-year-old Celia Shine died of multiple blunt force injuries on Tuesday morning. Around 1 o'clock Tuesday afternoon, the Montana Highway Patrol responded to a fatal one-vehicle crash on Molt Road just west of town. Celia Shine was dead at the crash scene, and her husband, Daniel Shine, was injured.
Billings police searched 927 9 Bark Street to several miles away and arrested Daniel Shine on New Year's Day. Shine faces charges of deliberate homicide and tampering with or fabricating physical evidence.
Well, today marks a pinnacle moment in Colstrip's long-standing power history. Bright and early this morning, coal-fired Power Unit 1 shut down for good. Unit 2 will do the same on Saturday. We sent MTN's Andrea Lutz to Colstrip, where residents say it's a sad day, but they're trying to stay optimistic.
For a town founded on coal, the sight of Unit 1 not running is hard to see. After all, this is where it all began.
Well, it's kind of a lost era. I mean, it's been here for over 30 years.
Colstrip resident Leo Connor works at the Rosebud coal mine, so he sees firsthand the impact the closure has on the town he loves.
It's a very close-knit community, so I think with the plants going down, it's going to be a sad day.
Construction on the first two plants got underway in the mid-1970s, and it ushered in a new era for Montana's energy sector. The town of Colstrip boomed, and so did jobs.
And of course, it's very disappointing.
Mayor John Williams says perhaps the rest of Montana doesn't realize how important coal power is to our electricity grid.
Every city and town within the state of Montana is extremely dependent upon affordable, reliable electricity.
But decades later, Colstrip has struggled against pushes to increase investments in renewable energy in the Pacific Northwest, with rising competition from cheap and abundant natural gas.
Take a look at it, folks. Take a look at the value of benefit that we have received over these 45, 50 years of having that coal product being mined in our state.
John says it's very disappointing. Still, he says Colstrip will power on.
We'll move forward. We'll continue to do the good things that we do. That's been my attitude. I've been here a long time.
And on the day that Unit 1 shuts down for good, many in town have high hopes for the year 2020 and beyond. They're optimistic, saying that the end of an era is just another day in the long history of Colstrip powering Montana. In Colstrip, Andrea Lutz, MTN News. Thanks, Andrea. Now, Units 3 and 4 are set to run until at least 2027. Republican State Senator Dwayne Ankney, one of the biggest advocates fighting to keep Colstrip Power up and running, calls this a prime example of how out-of-state and foreign dark money are destroying our communities and our families. He says coal does so much more than power our homes. Coal funds our public schools, infrastructure, parks, and libraries. He goes on to say the coal severance tax generates irreplaceable revenue for these essential public services, unlike what he calls hobby projects like wind and solar, which produce no revenue for these services. Mayor Williams of Colstrip also talked today about a $10 million transition fund that Puget Sound Energy, a co-owner of Units 1 and 2, must pay. However, he says there's no plan yet for how those funds will be dispersed.
Tonight, we know more about 3 snowmobilers buried in an avalanche near Seeley Lake yesterday. 2 of those men did not survive. Missoula County Sheriff's Captain Bill Burt tells us all 3 were expert riders. 24-year-old Jade Green and 26-year-old Lowell Grosvold, both of Anaconda, were found dead near Lake Dinah after an avalanche swept over them. A third man was able to free himself and call for help. He was able to find the first victim, who was wearing a beacon, within minutes, but the man was buried under 4 feet of snow.
He's looking for 2 of his friends, and he only has an idea of the location of one of them, so he's working pretty frantically through very difficult conditions. And even though it's only at 4 feet, that's an awful lot of snow to move, and it's heavy snow, and it's going to take a long time for just one person to do that.
Now, the third rider did not have a beacon. He was buried under 9 feet of snow and eventually was found with a probe.
And we're now joined by Q2 Chief Forecaster Bob McGuire. Bob, a windy day all across Montana. What town takes home the prize for the strongest wind gust today?
You're not going to believe it. We're talking hurricane force type winds today. Let me show you. But here's the way things are shaping up right now. You'll notice the windiest conditions have now moved over to the extreme eastern edge of the state, over there by Miles City, where we've got 30-mile-per-hour winds the last hour or so. But take a look at this. We had some pretty stiff winds near Ringling, Montana today. 92 miles per hour. That's right. 84 over at East Glacier. 82 at Livingston. Yeah, Livingston. A pretty breezy day there as well. Waterton Gate, 71 miles per hour. Big Timber, 67 mile per hour wind gust. Zortman had 65 mile per hour. Here in the Billings area, our peak wind gust today is up there, but not that high. It was only 44. Only 44. We'll have the rest of your forecast for the weekend in a few more minutes.
All right. Thank you, Bob.
Well, the U.S. Defense Department says it has killed a high-level Iranian general in an attack at the Baghdad International Airport.
Now, the major development follows 2 days of unrest outside of the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad. CBS News correspondent Natalie Brand has the latest.
The U.S. Defense Department says the military, at the direction of the president, conducted, quote, a defensive action at the Baghdad International Airport in Iraq, killing a key Iranian general, Qasem Soleimani. In a statement, the Defense Department said Soleimani, who led the elite Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, was actively developing plans to attack American diplomats and service members in Iraq and throughout the region. The statement went on to say this strike was aimed at deterring future Iranian attack plans. The United States will continue to take all necessary action to protect our people and our interests wherever they are around the world. The U.S. says General Soleimani approved the siege this week on the U.S. embassy by Iranian-backed militia supporters in Baghdad. On Thursday, the U.S. increased its presence in the region. U.S. troops with the 82nd Airborne Division arrived in Kuwait. An additional 3,000 are on alert and preparing to deploy to the region.
It's not a show of force. It's a reinforcing capability that we can employ not just in Iraq, but throughout the region.
Speaking to reporters off camera, Defense Secretary Mark Esper said earlier Thursday that there are indications militias loyal to Iran are planning further attacks.
Do I think they may do something? Yes, and they will likely regret it.
Iranian-backed demonstrators stormed the U.S. Embassy's perimeter on Tuesday, setting fires, throwing rocks, and destroying a reception building at the sprawling compound. After the operation, the president sent one tweet, an American flag. Natalie Brand, CBS News, Washington.
Now, in addition to the 82nd Airborne, the Pentagon is deploying 3 Marine amphibious ships to the Persian Gulf as reinforcements in case they are needed.
Also to come on the Q2 10 o'clock news, the vape debate has taken center stage recently, and now the FDA is taking new steps to put a stop to the epidemic.
And in sports, you don't want to miss this. Scott is going to show us tonight's heart-stopping basketball finish between Senior and Central.
You're watching MTN News with Jeanelle Slade and Russ Riesinger. Storm Tracker weather with Bob McGuire. And sports with Scott Breen. This is the 10 o'clock news on Q2, Montana's news leader.